There's some magic to be found in the world of player development. Your team's future is always priority number one on the Prospect Wizard podcast. Serving up the magic is the Prospect Wizard himself, Greg Mraz.
Well, we've got that wonderful new intro here on the Prospect Wizard, courtesy of my good friend, the great Sam Levitt, broadcaster for the Corpus Christi Hooks. Encourage all of you to go out and listen to him this season. Welcome to the Prospect Wizard, episode, 6? Yeah, I believe that's 6. That is the number 6, yes. So, if you are just joining us, welcome. We want you to enjoy this program filled of fun and adventurous wonder into the world of baseball prospects and, well, what I think of them. Which, considering that I've spent a good amount of time around professional baseball scouts in 2 seasons in the minor leagues, I think I am an entertaining way for you to get your information. So, we will proceed. I'm also repping my Northwestern Wildcats today. So if you have just tuned into us, well, if you want to listen to our past episodes, find us on SoundCloud, Prospect Wizard, YouTube, The Prospect Wizard, follow us on Twitter, @ProspectWizard, like us on Facebook, The Prospect Wizard, follow me on Twitter, @GregDMaraz. You can send us an email, prospectwizard@gmail.com. I think we've pretty much run the gauntlet on that. So, our prospect today is Bradley Zimmer, Cleveland Indians outfield prospect, and the one guy so far of the now 7 prospects that we've done. Our last episode is a Yankee 2-pack. We did Clint Frazier and Gleyber Torres. I hadn't seen any of our previous 6 prospects play. Well, I have seen Bradley Zimmer play, and let me tell you, he is as close to a 5-tool product as you're going to find. First-round pick in 2014 out of the University of San Francisco, go Dons. Younger brother of former 5th overall pick out of the University of San Francisco by the Kansas City Royals, Kyle Zimmer. Kyle's career has been somewhat sidetracked by injury, but he is getting back on the road to the major leagues, and we wish the best for Kyle going forward. I have not met him, but have heard nothing but great things about him. So what Bradley Zimmer possesses is that 5-tool talent that teams just dream about, especially from a true-born center fielder. Zimmer is 6'5", 220 pounds. He's got great speed plus power. He can spread the ball to all field. He's got fantastic range in center field, and he's a great base stealer. So, basically, what I've described is your typical 5-tool guy. He doesn't strike out a ton. He does have some strikeout issues at times, but at the end of the day, you can expect a guy to have strikeout issues if he tries to advance on his power a little bit too much. So, looking at some statistical analysis into Bradley Zimmer, this past season, 2016, 93 games with AA Akron, 253 average, 14 homers, 53 RBI, had a 371 on-base percentage with that 253 batting average. If your on-base is close to 120 points higher than your batting average, you're having yourself a real good time. In High A in 2015, 308 batting average, 403 on-base percentage. That was in 78 games. He got promoted to AA Akron. He only hit 219 at that point, but he had a 313 on-base percentage as well. Also worth noting, he spent 37 games in AAA Columbus this season, where he had a 349 on base, but a 242 batting average. So the trend here with Bradley Zimmer is that he has done well at the level that he has started the year at, and then he has struggled once he's gotten promoted, which makes me think that he'll more than likely start this season at AAA Columbus. Now, his power numbers with Akron in AA this past season, pretty good. 14 home runs in 93 games. You put that into a 140-game season, and he's probably going to be averaging, you'd say, close to 25 to 30 homers, somewhere in that range. Again, that's not somewhere that you can project that closely. Now, looking at Zimmer's FanGraph stats, and by the way, if you love any sort of intricate baseball analysis, I highly recommend you read FanGraphs. They just have some of the best information that you can find. So, and it's all great advanced statistics. He played in the AZL, the Arizona Fall League this year, and he walked in 20% of his plate appearances. He also struck out in 28% of his plate appearances, which is not a great number. He had a 421 on base in the Arizona Fall League this season with the Mesa Solar Sox, 257 batting average, a slugging of 514. You look at all these numbers with Zimmer and they say plus power. Why? Because his slugging percentage is high. He gets on base because his on base percentage is consistently 100 points higher than his batting average. That's exactly what you need from a guy that you're going to put in the center of your lineup, and it doesn't hurt that he's a center fielder who's got great speed. You look at his stolen base numbers, 11 stolen bases in rookie ball in 15 attempts in 45 games his first year. Second year, in High A Lynchburg, he stole 32 bases in 37 attempts. Got promoted to Double A Akron, 12 bases in 14 attempts. So, in 2015, combined between the two clubs, he stole 44 bases in 51 attempts. If you're only caught 7 times in 51 attempts, you know how to steal bases, and you're giving your team that much better of a chance to win. Now, I know that the advanced analytics are obviously going to say that, well, stealing bases is not really that important because the on-base percentage and the percentages of trying to advance runners are not going to give you the advantage to win. I say that's bull because, quite frankly, you run the risk on stealing a base in 1-run, 2-run ball games. If you've got that extra runner in scoring position, that's going to give you a much better chance to win the game. So there are going to be a lot of those people out there who are against stealing every time you get on base, but if you got a guy like Bradley Zimmer, get him into scoring position. You get that guy on in a leadoff situation, you put him at second, you try and steal, you bunt the next guy over. I like your chances of getting a run across if you've got a man at third with 1 out or a man at second and nobody out. That's what the percentages are going to say, and I like the chances. Sometimes you ruin your chance for a big inning, but if you've got that type of speed, you might as well use it if you're going to piece together run by run at a time. So, and this year, his stolen base numbers were not as good combined between Columbus and Akron, AAA and AA. He stole 38 bases in 52 attempts. So the number's not as good this season, but you also have to remember he played a combined 130 games and he attempted actually about the same amount of bases that he did the previous year between the two teams. So Bradley Zimmer, the point being is that the guy knows how to steal bases, and he's got the tools to be a star. He is maybe what the Indians were always hoping for in Grady Sizemore. That guy who can play a great center field, can get on base, can hit for power. There, to me, and I just say this from having seen him play, I saw him play when I was covering him in summer ball back in 2013 with the Catuit Cavaliers. The way the ball comes off his bat when he hits a ball out of the yard, there's just something special that you don't see from a majority of the center fielders that you find on the collegiate circuit. That's why this guy was drafted in the first round, because there was that much of an emphasis on what he could do power-wise. So I really like Bradley Zimmer to be in the big leagues at some point, maybe at the end of this year, if not the beginning of next year. So Bradley Zimmer is somebody that you look at and you say, all right, we want somebody who is going to be a franchise center fielder. And this is an interesting conundrum for the Cleveland Indians, and the reason why I say somebody else is going to look at him. I didn't specifically say somebody else. And I say if we look at him, I mean by we as in fans, prospect analysts, if you could really even call me that, and other GMs. This is the reality of the situation that the Cleveland Indians are facing right now. They just came off a loss in Game 7 of the World Series. They have a lot of pieces that are still in place for them to make a championship run. They traded away during their last season their number 2 and number 3 prospects, Clint Frazier and Justice Sheffield, to the Yankees to get Andrew Miller, who, by all counts, helped get them to the World Series. I don't think anybody can argue that. What's to prevent them from trading Bradley Zimmer if given the opportunity at the trade deadline this year to go into the stretch run? What do you see? Say that Cleveland ends up needing somebody like a Todd Frazier from the White Sox, who has great power. Last year of his contract, White Sox not competitive, no plans to re-sign him for the long term. Everybody knows that Rick Hahn is going to want a high-priced prospect, as he already has done for guys like Lucas Giolito, Yoan Moncada, Michael Kepik, who we're going to get to at a later time. By the way, he threw a 110-mile-an-hour fastball during a off-season training session, or so it was said. I don't know how much I buy that, but still, 110 miles an hour is pretty darn cool. So, we look at Bradley Zimmer as somebody who could potentially be trade bait. Now, there's no founded rumor for this at all. He's a non-roster invitee to spring training this year for the Cleveland Indians. And I don't think he'll make the big league roster. I don't even think there's an iota that he's on the opening day roster at all. But when you've got a guy that's your top prospect and has been able to put up some consistently good offensive numbers, at this point you have to give him a chance to at least make the big league club. I don't think he'll last in big league spring training that long, but still, it's going to be very interesting to see how he performs in the early parts of spring training and then in the early parts of, assumingly, his second stint at AAA coming up with the Columbus Clippers this upcoming season. And if he's still with the Indians past the trade deadline, then you know this is the guy they want as their franchise center fielder, which I hope for his sake and for Indians fans' sake, just based on how special this guy is, that he will be. So, that does it for this episode of the Prospect Wizard. Now, we have... Sorry about that. Those of you who are watching on the video version, I had an undesirable itch in my nose that you know what? I know you didn't want to see that, but hey, you try recording something that you can't stop while you have an itchy nose. It's a little bit painful. So, our next episode is going to be focusing on somebody who I have admired for a long time. And I got to cover him for maybe 3 games in Summer Ball back in 2014. And this is before this guy became big. This is before he became nationally known as the kid from a small-time baseball program who made it big and is shocking the baseball world. That is Seattle Mariners #1 prospect and 2016 Golden Spikes winner, Kyle Lewis. Now, Kyle Lewis is a very interesting guy to talk about because he's only had a half a season of professional baseball. This guy was a college All-American and somebody who was considered a 5-tool guy, just like Bradley Zimmer, a center fielder. But Kyle Lewis, I'm mixing up Bradley Zimmer and Kyle Lewis turning into Kyle Zimmer. Anyways, you guys know what I'm trying to do here. Kyle Lewis unfortunately suffered an ACL injury during his rookie year with the Everett Aqua Sox. So we're going to see how Kyle Lewis ends up responding, and nobody knows when he's going to get to play next, but still, this is somebody that, based upon how he's performed in his brief time at the professional level and the consistency that he put up during his final 2 years at the collegiate level, this guy is a future star in the making. But how is his injury going to affect his development? So we'll talk about him next time. Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Prospect Wizard. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Prospect Wizard. You can listen to past episodes by searching Prospect Wizard on SoundCloud. Watch us on YouTube by searching Prospect Wizard. Like us on Facebook at our page The Prospect Wizard, and follow us on Twitter at Prospect Wizard. You can also always send us an email at prospectwizard@gmail.com.